Hey guys, this week's video is all about more thrift flips. I'm focusing specifically on wooden pieces and upcycling them. If you're new here, my name is Leanne. I'm the face behind Small Gestures Vintage and Crafts, and I'm glad that you're here with me. Yes, this week I made my first ever tiered tray and had a lot of fun antiquing and upcycling some standard regular Hobby Lobby wooden candlesticks. I played with mill paint and patina paint, transfers, and inlays. Yes, 3 weeks in a row now, guys. I've done paint inlays and I had so much fun, and I absolutely love the way that particular project turned out. So if you are ready, stick around and let's do it. For my first project this week, I am making over this table leg that I have had in my stash for a few years now. It was acquired in the most of interesting ways, but that's for another day. I wanted to make it over. I didn't know how I was going to use it, but I was at a yard sale and I found this square flower pot, and I thought that they would be perfect together, like as a little riser for your keys, kind of a catch-all in the entryway. So I gave it a good scrub. I gave it a couple of coats of shellac, and now I am coming in with DIY skeleton key. 2 coats of skeleton key, and the second coat was actually sponged on for some extra texture, and then once it was completely dry, then I came in with some Big Top to seal it all in, because we're going to play around with paint inlays again. This is the Chateau inlay, and I think the colors are going to be perfect, and I just love the whimsical random pattern that we're going to put all on this little pedestal piece. So I'm just randomly cutting out pieces and getting started. You know, I'm going to say up front, I'm really proud of myself because I was scared of doing inlays at all. And now look at me, like all these videos in a row, and I think applying inlays with Big Top is my favorite way to do it. So you spritz the inlay, the painted side of the inlay, and then I just went over the whole piece with another coat of Big Top, and then you just flip the piece of inlay over, and so the grid side is up, and lay it into the wet coat of Big Top. And I just kind of started at one end and worked my way around and just press down really firmly just to make sure that this piece is embedded and it goes around all of those curves and ledges, and so the paint will embed into the Big Top. I push it down, I spritzed it again, and then push it down, make sure I've got good adhesion, and then I set it aside to dry. You don't want to let it completely dry when you're using Big Top or another top coat like that, but when it's ready to remove, you spritz it with water, let it sit for about 15-20 seconds, and then look at that. I just love the colors on this skeleton key. This is another one I did. I don't know what I did differently, but it did not transfer very well at all. So we're going to be actually adding to this side right here a little later in the video. If you've done inlays before, you know that when you use partial pieces, sometimes you can get lines from where the inlay was and where the paint is. And I've noticed that with Big Top, because it's thinner than the paint, that line isn't as noticeable, and it's also easier for me because I put inlays over all of the curved surfaces. I don't show all of it, but in areas I was finding that it's easy to just wipe away a little bit of the Big Top, so it reduces some of those lines that you see. Now, I didn't film the complete process for all of these. It's the same thing, and the reveal is the best part anyway, so I just wanted to make sure that I captured that. And it was kind of time consuming because I really could only do one side at a time. Now, this is the side that I said in the beginning we were adding to it because it was really faint and the paint didn't transfer very well. So I just came in with a different piece. Just wanted to continue the swirly pattern I have on a couple of other sides. And look at that. It's a perfect addition. I just went over the existing design that I had down very gently with some Big Top, and it didn't smear it at all. So I had to figure out how I was going to attach this flower pot to the pedestal vase. I didn't want to rely just on some epoxy to hold it together. So my husband had a big old bolt, an elevator bolt, I think they call it, and I'm just giving it a coat of antique gold rub and buff. And it is going to securely hold the pot into the bottom. I always like to finish the bottom of my pieces. So this is just some adhesive cork that I got off of Amazon, and I just cut it to size. I just want to finish it off, and I don't necessarily always want paint on the bottom. I applied one on the top too, and then promptly realized that I forgot that there's a hole in the middle of it. So I just took an X-Acto knife and cut that hole out so I could attach that little flower pot. So this is some clear epoxy by JB Weld, and it's just a two-part epoxy. You just squirt out what you need, stir it together until it's mixed really well for about a minute. It says it sets up in 5 minutes and it is cured within an hour. So that's what I did, and then I just spread it on the top here, and then we're going to get ready to affix the flower pot. So I centered the flower pot on top there and pushed it down really well, and then weighted it down with a can of paint, and then repeated that process once this was set up and mixed more so I could put some on the back of the bolt that's going to go in the top of the pot. And I also dropped some down into the hole where that bolt is going to go. So I drilled out the hole a little wider because I wouldn't have a way to screw the bolt in, so I just made the hole wider so I could just drop it in, and then I just filled it with the epoxy, and I figured that should hold it pretty well. Now I had just used one inlay sheet for this whole piece, so some of these pieces were used twice. And on this, actually this side right here, the little wispy parts at the very bottom that go up, that's the second use. So they still look great after the second use, even using the Big Top. I love the way these two pieces came together, and I think it's a really unique piece of home decor. What do you think? For my second project this week, I am going to be making over these two candlesticks that I thrifted from. They originally were at Hobby Lobby. I got the small one for $2 and I got the larger one for $3 from my favorite thrift store, Deseret in Arizona. And you can see they've got metal tops. So and they both had like this old world rustic layered look to them. And I had already months ago picked off and sanded down the larger one so it was a smooth finish. So I started to do the same with the smaller one, and you can see how easily some of these bits were flaking off, and I didn't want to put paint on top of it since this doesn't adhere very well to the wood. So that was my thought process. And then when I started, I kept going and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to change direction and I'm just going to sand it a little bit. So I'm getting rid of any of the loose bits, just like milk paint, and any of those sharp ridges from where the texture is. And then I just decided to come in with this plaster and retexturize the big one. It's not going to look identical to the small one, but I wanted to have kind of the same vibe going on, so I just added plaster all over randomly and then let it dry overnight. I wanted to give these metal tops a metal patina finish, so this is Patina paint by Dixie Belle, and this is in the color copper. And I cleaned these guys, but obviously not well enough, because as I'm painting, I see remnants of a little sticker of some sort right there. So I cleaned it off, scraped it off, and cleaned it up again and resumed my painting process. They got one good coat that I just brushed on, and then coat 2 I kind of stippled on for a little bit of texture. And then I let that dry before we start with coat 3. So 2 coats are now dry, and so I'm coming in with a 3rd coat, again stippling it on, and this is when you use your spray, when the paint is still wet. The paint actually has metal fragments in it, and it reacts with the patina sprays. And I have 2 sprays here. I have one in yellow, and this one is the green that I'm using right here. I'm able to use the yellow like for 2 sprays and then the sprayer breaks. So I just drip it on because it still gives me the effect is still the same, and I just play around with it. I think I squirted some more green on to kind of get some movement, and I can move that spray around to get some really yummy metal patina going. So a heat gun, of course, speeds up the activation process, so it kind of gives you an idea of how the texture changes and how it really does start to develop a nice metal patina. So I let that sit on that side, and then I repeat the process on the bottom side. And I went kind of heavy-handed because I thought the top was very yellow, so I went heavy-handed on this bottom side because I wanted a little more of the green spray, but the process was the same. I just squirted it around and then just let those colors kind of flow wherever they wanted to, and then I set them aside until the next day. So the plaster was completely dry on the candlesticks. I gave them a good coat of shellac, and then now this is Fusion Mineral Paint in the color Ash. I'm going to be using milk paint on these, and you can see I'm using In a Pickle. See, there's this 24 hours later, and you can see how the color has changed. So I'm using In a Pickle, and I was hoping the cracking would show the black. However, I did not spray the black after I painted it, so when it cracks, it goes right through the black paint, which ends up being perfectly fine. One of these days I'm going to remember that I need to spray it if I want the black to show. But I looked at the green and I thought that is very green. It definitely is a pickle green. So I'm also adding a scoop of Sweetie Jane just to tone it down a little bit and pick up more of the blue-green color that is in those metal tops. I actually don't think I mentioned it, but milk paint is a powder paint, as you could see, and you mix it with equal parts of water and the powder mixture. Stir it together for about 2 minutes, and then you let it sit for about 10 minutes, and it will thicken up a little bit. And when it goes on, the first coat does look a little scary. Don't let it freak you out. It really, when you put the second coat on, and you'll see that in just a second, it makes a huge difference and it looks completely different. I actually ended up using about 3 coats, I think, on these two candlesticks. After the paint was thoroughly dry, and with the help of a heat gun, of course, to encourage that cracking, then I took a stiff bristled nylon brush to it and scraped off, was able to get loose some chips and sanded it a little bit, and then I took it outside, sprayed them both with some weather defense before I top it with some DIY dark wax. And unfortunately you can't see the crackle very well right here, but once you apply the wax and it sinks down into those cracks, it just gives you the best looking age-old. I swear when I'm done, these things do look like they're 100 years old with layers and layers of paint underneath. I know I say this every video, but I really do love how these turned out. And you can see the difference right here with the top part that hasn't been waxed and then the dark wax on the very bottom. Look at that, just that richness. I just love it. After the wax and a good buffing, then I reapplied the screwed back in the metal tops, and I also finished these guys off too with some cork on the bases just to protect the bottom of them as well. See, look at that color. I just love it. I actually have another set of candlesticks that has a bigger metal top and has a metal base, and I want to do the same thing with those as well. I am in love with these that much. For project number 3 this week, I am making my first ever tiered tray. I have this huge Barbara Floyd wood plate, you know, those primitive plates. I cannot find a one of them here, but I have a huge stash from Arizona. So I pulled out this wood round and the plate and a spindle, and I'm just scuffing up the spindle. Some of the finish is a little loose and I want to degloss it a little bit before I paint it. Then I realized I had a smaller Barbara Lloyd plate, so that's perfect. So I swapped it out. I cut the spindle in half, and that's how they're going to get attached, and I think it's going to look good. So this guy also got a sanding. The other one I had painted 2 years ago in Arizona. So I'm just testing. This is a larger double-ended wood screw. I love these because, as you see, I'm screwing one end into one part of the spindle. It will go through the plate, and then it will screw right in to the top of the spindle piece to make the middle part of my tier tray. I am using Fusion Mineral Paint in Cashmere. Both of the plates, top and bottom, got 3 coats of this paint, and I also painted the spindle middle piece as well. That got painted in Fusion Mineral Paint in Ash, the same color that I painted the candlesticks in the previous project. It's kind of just like a really deep, dark charcoal gray. I decided I wanted to do a bit of a transfer on the two trays. So we're using the beautiful Joie de Roses. I have a piece that is going to fit perfectly right there that was already marked. So I'm just cutting it out where I want it to go, and it will be applied. The big one will go on the bottom, and then I have some little rosebuds that will go on the top tray. The color in these roses and these leaves, I think is just so soft and so pretty. And I love that it also, that embedded in the design, you've got some crackle, because I do have a little bit of cracking going up on to the ledge, but it's really not noticeable. And again, especially because you've already got cracks built into the actual design of the flowers, but they apply really so beautifully over this mineral paint, over the fusion mineral paint. I'm just working my way all the way around, and you really can see how easily they lift up. And once it's all adhered onto the plate, then I just go over them really, really well with this top carrier sheet, burnish them in, especially along that ridge there, just to make sure everything is sealed down before I go over it with the top coat. I gave both plates 2 coats of a flat top coat by Dixie Belle and drilled a hole in the center of the bottom plate, and then I'm just putting in a flathead screw, and that's what's going to go into the bottom piece of the spindle, and then that bottom piece of the spindle will go through the top plate to put it all together. If you are enjoying this video so far, and if you've not done it already, please subscribe and drop a like, leave me a comment. I would love to hear from you. I want you guys to know I so appreciate you hanging out with me week after week and watching my videos. I hope you enjoy them. I definitely enjoy making them. I added those felt pads on the bottom just for some extra protection and so it wouldn't be wobbly from the screw. And what do you think? I think she's pretty. So my fourth and final project this week is a super simple one. I showed you a couple of months ago, I picked up a bunch of these old fence pickets at an antique store, and they were $3 each, I think. And so I thought I would love to see what milk paint looks like on here. So I covered this one with shellac, a couple of coats of shellac, and I am using Sweet Pickins milk paint in the color Window Pane. Again, it is equal parts powder and water, and then you just mix it, let it sit aside. There really is not much to show with this guy. It took quite a while to get some cracking because this wood is so dry, it just soaked it right in. And unfortunately, unless you are right on top of it with white, you don't see a lot of the cracking on film, on camera. Film. Ooh, not film, on camera. So I've applied 3 coats of milk paint. I'm sorry, I'm laughing over the film comment. I am really aging myself right now. And then just going over it with my little sanding, my finger sander, and scraping off all of those chippy bits. And I love this. This wood is so lightweight. I can see it. I might even put it on my gallery wall with just some command hooks, you know, the ones for poster board, because it's so light and it would adhere so easily and just go up on a decorative wall. So after the scraping and sanding, I gave it a coat of Weather Defense, and now I am coming in with DIY's dark wax. And even though it's got the Weather Defense, it still doesn't really look at here, but it really was more dark than what I wanted. So clear wax is a great eraser. So I just came in with a little bit of clear wax to knock it back a little bit. And then when I antiqued the rest of it, I really just dry brushed the dark wax and then used the clear wax to just move that around. I think this is my quickest flip to date. There we are, another video for you. I hope you have enjoyed these thrift store flip projects and all of the different techniques. And again, if you like this video, I sure would appreciate it if you subscribe, like, comment, follow, all that good stuff. And until next time, take care.